Lord Mayor John McNaughton was today moving house, 15 months after it was damaged by the earthquake. Repair work will begin next week and should take around 6 months. It's been a slow and frustrating process for the city's leader.
What it does show is just how time-consuming it is to get through all the procedures.
The Lord Mayor's problem is similar to thousands of others in the community. The system is simply clogged with repair claims. It's not known how many people are affected, but it's estimated up to $400 million in repair work is still to be completed.
You've got many thousands of very small jobs. I'm told that the average claim is only about $10,000, but that claim requires 5 trades to fix it up. And any one of those tradesmen is slow getting the job done, nobody gets paid and the householder doesn't get the job done.
Newcastle Council will look at ways of helping people suffering delays. One idea put forward by renewal manager Brian Eastoe is to offer a number of small repair jobs to the one contractor or builder, making it worth his while to do the work. Finding a solution, though, is not easy, but according to the Lord Mayor, the city's immediate future depends on it.
It will become more and more frustrating, people will become more and more angry, and instead of having a free-flowing, well-coordinated move that keeps money flowing in an orderly fashion through the city, we will just have more and more people unemployed, more and more frustration, and I think the whole procedure will grind to a halt.
Despite promises of a meeting, Council refused to talk with Greenpeace and reneged on promises to open the waste dump gates to an inspection. But defiant local residents took the environmentalists on a guided tour via a private entrance. And even the hardened Greenpeace experts were shocked.
It is quite extraordinary to see open pits with toxic waste dumped in quite this way. It really is horrific.
Last week, resident and council tests on the sanitary ponds found significant levels of toxic substances, including a lead contamination 100 times the safe level. Just a fortnight ago, council had said the area was safe, with private contractors dumping only sewage and grease food traps. The sanitary depot was officially closed today, but while the immediate problem is over, there are still some serious questions which need answers.
We need to be looking very closely at these private contractors and find out exactly what toxic load they're carrying in these tankers all over the state. And then we need to be looking very closely at the industries who are seeking to secretly dump toxic waste all over the state.
Local residents are carrying out blood tests on stock grazing just metres away from the dump, which also raises the issue of compensation. Meanwhile, the ponds in the dump are expected to be cleaned out and any toxic substances safely disposed of. It's believed sewage which was dumped here will be taken to another Singleton treatment works. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Beneath the surface here at the Burwood Beach Treatment Works and over there under Merriweather lies an estimated 14 million cubic metres of space. It was once the Newcastle Coal Company colliery, abandoned more than 70 years ago. But if the Hunter Water Board has its way, it will become the region's newest waste dump. This is sludge, a 99% water, 1% solid mixture, which the board hopes to pump into the mine.
Sludge is a byproduct of the biological treatment process that goes on. We accelerate a natural biodegradation process by encouraging the growth of these microorganisms which chew up all the organics that are in the sewage. But because they're growing and multiplying as they eat the food in the sewage, we have an excess of them.
Sludge isn't produced at present, waste is instead screened, solids like this buried, and fluids pumped through an ocean outfall. After last night's packed meeting, several residents saw the mine dumping proposal as the lesser of two evils.
If we don't get secondary treatment, we're still going to get pollution out to sea, which we're getting at the moment with only primary treatment. When one studies these reports, it has the least environmental impact on the district of any of the proposals.
There's no alternative really, is it, at the moment?
They should go ahead with it. I think there are modifications they could make to it, and so long as they take the normal precautions of good monitoring, there'll be no problems.
But other residents were sceptical about the board's ability to monitor the project with a mere $50,000 a year.
It's another one of those cheap, simple solutions that statutory bodies go for. And then later on we find that it's really very expensive because of the problems that are created.
Well, I think it's a joke.
But monitoring is a serious business for Water Board Managing Director Paul Broad.
Now, if we take this next step and put sludge down the mine, the control mechanisms are the key.
Mine dumping of sludge won't begin for at least a year. Even then, it's subject to State Pollution Control Commission approval and a 2-year trial period. Chris Barth, NBN News.
It's been a checkered path for South Newcastle over the past decade, with the club nearly bankrupt at one stage and then a mighty revival that culminated in the Lions winning the Tooheys Premiership in 1988 and 89 after being runner-up in 86 and 87. A disappointing year last season has seen plenty of new signings, and to help the financial stakes, the announcement that long-time Souths men John Hewlett and Peter Howlett, along with their company Clarklift, will back the Lions in 91. With Clarklift, 20 subsidiary sponsors will look after a player to the tune of $500 each. For Captain Coach Richard Jones, everything's in place for a huge year.
A couple of months ago I was a little bit concerned about the playing staff, but as it turns out at the moment I'm more than happy. We've got virtually 2 sides for 3rd grade, and we're looking at probably putting another side in the 2nd division competition. So there's no problems there with their playing personnel. We've started the season in great fashion with a great win last week without our rep players. So this week's very important to us to consolidate our performances. If we do that, I'm sure we're in for a very good year.
After beating Charlestown last weekend, the Lions tackle North Nelson Bay at the Bay without their 3 rep players, who will be in Wagga for the final of the MMI Country League Championship against Riverina. And after their slashing win over Western Division, Jones, who will captain Newcastle, also is full of confidence that the trophy will return to Newcastle.
We like the feeling that's been created, especially by the Bathurst trip, that the win against Western was something special, and it really created a feeling amongst the team that we believe we can go on with the job.
The heli-hopping Premier was relieved to make a safe touchdown at Tokal Agricultural College in a borrowed helicopter, only half an hour behind schedule for his next appointment. In his wake, an emergency landing at Cessnock and a team of engineers poring over his grounded aircraft similar to this one. Flying over Greta, one of the Augusta helicopter's twin engines had stopped.
Oh, well, it was a little interesting. The pilot was always in command, and I think we were all fairly calm about it, but I guess it gives you a scare for a moment when he turns around and says, we've just had an engine failure, we're going to Cessnock. I just said, whenever, wherever you like.
After a year of fire, flood and drought, life on the land in New South Wales would seem a bleak prospect to many. But not so for the 98 new graduates of the CB Alexander Agricultural College. 90% of its graduates find work in their chosen fields. The rest study on or decide the land isn't for them. Presenting their certificates, the Premier hinted of a future of unprecedented change in agriculture, its regulations and markets, and urged the graduates to take the initiative in such times.
That agriculture will change and will continue to change, and it will be very much better for those in it if they drive that change, if they try and own that change and manage it in their interests and in the interests of the consumers.
Rodney Marlowe of Tamworth was the college's 2000th graduate. Dux in the 2-year advanced certificate was Ian Noonan from Craven via Gloucester. Dux of the first-year certificate was Brian Piper from Cassilis, and Liz Wright of Gosford won the New South Wales Agriculture and Fisheries Youth Scholarship. 4 African students were among the graduating class. The Premier stressed the important link between the fortunes of the land and the city and the economic recovery of the state.
It's not just that every sector is in trouble at the moment. It is that the two are inextricably intertwined. The well-being of what happens in our primary production sectors is terribly important to the overall well-being of those in the city who may not have been near a farm or an agricultural enterprise in their lives, and vice versa.
Controversial player Terry Hill made his debut for the Roosters in reserve grade, and the Marching Koalas staged a brilliant pre-match show that should have had the Knights all revved up. It obviously had stirred David Boyd as he went high on Paul Vaughton. Gordon opened the scoring with a penalty, and then the combination of Gordon and Doyle bombed a try. Gordon kicked another penalty, and then Peter Johnson and Doyle went close. And right after the break, danger man Brendan Hall opened up the Knights. Play moved from end to end with the Roosters making plenty of breaks to put pressure on the Knights. Gordon equalised and then put the Knights in front. With a crowd of 23,500 trying to gee the Knights on, Vaughton nearly got East on level terms. And then with 10 seconds to go, enter Kurt Sherlock.
The normally quiet Hunter Valley town of Dungog was jumping with the start of the rodeo. Almost 250 entries were received from riders from New South Wales and Queensland. They competed in 12 lively events. The aim of each saddle bronc rider was to stay on his horse for 8 seconds while holding on with only one hand. On the other side of town, different riding skills were being tested. 160 competitors took part in the Dungog horse trials. Having completed the dressage component of the contest yesterday, riders took part in the cross-country and show jumping events today. Cross-country riding makes huge demands on a horse and rider's skill and fitness. Some competitors used the Dungog competition to prepare for the forthcoming 3-day event at the New South Wales Equestrian Centre at Lochinvar.
At Davies and Cannington, the writing is on the wall. Soon, some of its 85 employees may be joining the ranks of the unemployed. After weathering financial difficulties and an industry price war for several years, the future of the company is now in doubt.
The company has been trading at a loss for some time, and we came to the decision that we were unable to continue to pay our debts as they fell due. And last week, we were forced to go to the bank and ask them to appoint receivers to the company.
It's expected receivers will be appointed tomorrow and will meet with staff and unions later this week.
The staff have all been kept totally up to date with what the situation is. They won't know until Tuesday or Wednesday this week what their future is, but we have been told to expect a large number of retrenchments fairly quickly.
Ironically, other local printers will not benefit greatly from the winding down of Davies and Cannington's $8 million a year operations.
Some of the business we do could be taken over by Newcastle printers, but the majority of our printing is computer stationery, and most of that business would be most likely to go to Sydney.
So it's another blow to the economics of the Hunter.
Another blow to Newcastle business, that's right.
It will be a sad end for the company, which was to celebrate its centenary in July. Alison Peters for NBN News.
The drama unfolded in Beaumont Street when the back of the Volkswagen Beetle caught fire. The driver, a 33-year-old woman from New Lambton, was not hurt, but she had a nasty shock.
I just pulled up at the gates and it just exploded. It just went bang and exploded. Turned around and there's flames leaping out of it.
Her car is a write-off. It's believed a faulty fuel line caused the fire.
I have directed the U.S. military to begin immediately to establish several encampments in northern Iraq where relief supplies for these refugees will be made available in large quantities and distributed in an orderly way.
Local firm Halmac won the contract to install the lighting system. A full bank of spots will be placed along the width of the grandstand, and at each end a pole will carry more lamps. On the eastern side there will be an additional 4 poles which will carry lamps to complement the western lights.
They are something special. They will provide 1,200 lux all over the field of play. To the uninitiated, that means plenty of light for colour television, way above the minimum requirement.
One major concern was the effect on nearby residents, but that potential problem has been averted.
Most of the lights come from that side, most of the light provided with towers and across the front of the grandstand. On this side, 4 towers to provide backlighting, so we enjoy television without seeing the players running around with shadows, as we've seen in previous televised Friday night matches.
And there's no doubt that the night the lights fire up, there'll be a party.
We usually turn everyone on here at the football. On Friday night, very shortly, we're going to turn them on twice. We'll turn them on with the lights and turn them on with the rugby league.
It was a case of no pain, no gain at the university this week. 300 students will earn $25 apiece for playing the guinea pig for the latest range of flu vaccines.
It's to check whether the vaccine sold to the general public against influenza works or not. It changes slightly every year, so that it has to be a new vaccine every year.
Newcastle is the only university in Australia where the testing is carried out, and it's a thorough and thoroughly painful process.
We take 10 mils of blood from them and then vaccinate them, and then in 3 weeks' time we take another 10 mils of blood. The first one's a baseline antibody against influenza, and the second one tells us whether they've reacted against the antigens in the vaccine.
But the students get the satisfaction of knowing they've advanced the cause of medical science, and surely that's the main thing.
What was your motivation for undergoing the test?
Basically the $25. I've had the test before, so there's no signs or symptoms that cause me any discomfort or illness, and I need the $25.
Because I need the money. That's just it. I mean, there's not really much money to survive on if you're going to university, so you do things like this.
Was it worth the pain?
BHP Austral's start to the season was anything but a glorious affair as they were belted 3-0 by Sutherland. They bounced back with a 2-2 draw against Rockdale last weekend, but that first match is still on the players' minds.
Poor performance, I'd have to say, on the first game, but last week we picked up our performance a lot more committed, and we had the chances to win it. This year we didn't have the pre-season competition that we normally have to start the season, and I think it's showed a little bit in our competitive edge to start with.
Tredinick is one of the original Austral players, joining the club in 1987 after a stint with KB United, Melita Eagles and Apia before returning home to Newcastle. He is one of the key defenders and an instigator of many attacking raids.
We always try and play football out from the back. Sometimes it's not always possible, but yeah, we'll be looking to play football out from the back and build from there, and hopefully it'll all come good for us.
The Newcastle Knights boarded a bus to leave for Sydney this afternoon, but first-grade prop Peter Johnston was nowhere to be seen. Coach McMahon confirmed the prop was in the side, but said he was not going on camera. Knights officials were not prepared to speak.
Mike, can you give us a comment?
No. I did this morning, right?
27-year-old Johnston, a former captain of the Knights, pleaded guilty last month in Newcastle court to cultivating 3 cannabis plants. He was fined $1,000. According to a newspaper report, Johnston told the court he was going to try the stuff because he had never tried it before. He went on to say, "I wondered what it would be like. That's the only reason I had the things growing." Earlier during the week, it was revealed 2 members of the Knights under-21 side were suspended by the club for 3 matches for alleged misconduct. Knights officials refused to say what the pair had done. It's not known what penalty, if any, has been imposed on Johnston. In fact, Coach McMahon said he wasn't even aware of the incident. Peter Ryan, NBN News.